Welcome back, and welcome to something a little bit different. On Sunday the 4th, we got our first look at NLT's new game, Symphony of the Serpent. After the trailer dropped, I got the chance to sit down with NLT in his Discord with a live audience to discuss the main changes coming to Symphony of the Serpent. We ended up talking for nearly 2 hours about many different topics, including Patreon and the adult gaming industry as a whole. Here is a little segment of that conversation, and I hope you enjoy. One thing that worries me is compression of animations. Will it be grainy as TGO, or will the resolution be like Treasure and Nadia? I'm going to guess it's Android has more compression than the PC does.
For Android, if you're playing offline on Android right now, you're going to get the same low quality, blurrier image just because it has to be compressed like that. Now, obviously, early on, the game's smaller in size. It technically doesn't have to be compressed. And maybe early on it won't be, but at some point when you're trying to just cram a 12 gigabyte game into a 2 gigabyte file, you gotta make, something's got to give. So, like I said before, if you play online, everything's crystal clear. It's the same game as PC. It is more compressed than the PC version, but not to any degree you would notice. It basically looks the same. If you want to play offline, yeah, there's some concessions that will have to be made. That might change in the future. I think if I had a dedicated Android team, they could probably figure out ways around that. I'm not an Android developer, and so I'm using third-party tools, and I'm limited by those tools. So if there's a demand for it, perhaps we could figure out a way to get offline mode to work. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Will you be moving to solely having us use the launcher, or manual downloads and installs be a thing? I'm asking because it sounds like it will be a bigger game in terms of file size.
Yeah, the launcher is going to change. We're going a completely different way with the launcher. So there's going to be a new launcher for Symphony of the Serpent. I think the plan right now is to have one launcher for all the games, but it's going to be on completely different platform than what exists now. What exists now basically it has to verify each file one at a time, which takes quite a long time. And so for a while, we've said we need a way to make this faster. And so we started developing something on a completely different platform. And that's kind of what we're working on now. I think it's working at this point. Most of this stuff's being developed by not me. So the person who developed the engine for the previous games, the launcher, all the backend stuff has been working hard on that, while I've been working on the assets and animation and all that stuff. I'm only just now going to start getting into the nitty gritty with the backend stuff. So I've been told everything's working good. Of course, there's a lot of testing that's going to have to be done, but it's going to be a new system. And then for those who don't want to use any type of launcher and stuff, I've always offered zip files, and if that's the way you like to do it, then we'll continue to offer that. Kind of no reason not to. I mean, we can do it, so might as well offer that. Obviously, playing with the launcher is very simple. If an update's there, you just get it, and you don't have to go download anything, whatever. And if you play online, it's even easier. Although online, it's dependent on your internet connection. So if you have a slow internet connection, you might be loading times between scenes and stuff. But that's still going to be offered as an option as well, of course.
Patreon can deny you of some of the kinks, yes. Patreon's terms of services can be a little bit restricting, but once you build a platform on something like that, I'm going to guess you have to, once you get comfortable.
Yeah, I would say Patreon's probably the most strict of the platforms that I'm currently on. But overall, they're still pretty willing to allow most stuff through. Steam, shockingly enough, lets almost anything through.
Yeah, Steam's recent games, I'll be like, oh, okay.
I think, I mean, it's awesome that they're willing to do that. If I were to guess, I would say, like, does Gabe, is he still does he still run the show over there?
No idea.
Well, if he is, I bet you he's a fan of these games, because why else would you allow all that stuff on your platform? That's my theory. I mean, I'm glad they allow all that stuff. But yeah, if I were to guess, he must be like a fan of the games, because why else would you put like that much? When I speak to other platforms, they are so scared of this content, but Steam isn't scared of it at all. It's like amazing. Patreon is, as much as people might complain about them. They kind of went to bat for the adult games back in 2017. It's like, yeah, they had to make some strict rules, but they found banks and stuff that were willing to work with them. It's a lot different world now. Like the adult industry is a lot different now than it was in the past. In the past, no one wanted to be involved with it. There's too much risk with credit card transactions and stuff being phony and stuff like that. But these days, it's like it's almost mainstream, and I think it's only going to get more and more lax. With like, yeah, we'll let if you want to build this type of content, that's fine. Just don't break any laws. That's my guess is where it's kind of heading. It's like early on when I started this company, I was very concerned about like sentiment changing. Steam didn't allow adult content, Patreon allowed adult content, but it was like you were kind of like, for how long? Because the credit card companies, were not typically with adult content. Credit card companies take like a 30, 40, 50% cut, like massive cut. Patreon was working with banks and only taking like a 5% cut. It's like it seemed too good to be true. And I guess to some extent it was, because they did have to change their rules. But the world is changing for the better from my point of view, and I think Patreon has slowly started to add back a little bit of that stuff. It's kind of where we are. I think it's slowly getting better over time.
I think the world's a little bit less, I don't know, like scared of sex. Like even you got women reading smut books, like a lot more openly. Sex is being talked about more openly.
50 Shades of Grey was in movie theaters, in mainstream movie theaters, and the type of, technically at the time it was released in those movie theaters, that content would have been banned from Patreon at the time.
It's softcore porn. That's what that is.
Well, the BDSM aspect, I've never seen it, but it's BDSM stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's what I assume.
Yes.
And so, yeah. But now Patreon's like, yeah, okay, fine. All that stuff's fine.
Will we ever get any NTR or near-to-air content? NTR, because NTR is not one thing, is it? There's layers to this, but
NTR content, maybe as optional content. There's certain things I avoid because the sentiment in the feedback is so clear. And when it comes to NTR, oh my goodness, it could not be more clear. The audience that I've cultivated is mostly not into that type of thing. And because of my philosophy that I don't want to make content in the game that you don't experience, then I'm just not going to have that in the game. As optional content, certainly I could do that. My holdback on that is I'm making content specifically for people who might not be into it. And as I fund the project through Patreon. So if you're paying on Patreon, you should get everything. It's like you shouldn't. Well, okay, I technically help pay for the development of this update, and then I personally am not interested in anything in this update. I don't know. It seems kind of unfair. I'm not against it. I'm not against adding NTR or futa or furry content. I'm not against any of it. If people want that stuff, I'll put it in the game. Certainly is optional. I think the best way to get that stuff in the game, if you want it, is to fill out the feedback form. At the end of each update, you're forwarded to a survey, and the sentiment that we read in those surveys is what determines how the games are pushed forward. So the best way to get your voice heard is to fill out that survey, and otherwise just discuss it on Discord, discuss it in the Patreon comments, and then we'll see where things go.
that just set chat into an absolute spiral. I don't know if you're just reading chat there.
Oh, I can only imagine. I think the NTR question is probably the most controversial aspect of these games, because you get two sides of it, and both are very passionate about their sides.
Yeah. I was listening to Set's Positive Gaming on her podcast talk about it, and the nuances between all of the different styles. It's definitely more Japanese, isn't it? It's definitely more Asian in the style of the games you get it in.
Yeah, there's a lot of Western games too that
are now adding it. Yeah,
kind of go that way. Personally, I'm not against it. I'm super open when it comes to different kinks and stuff. It's like I can understand the value in anything. If you're into it, like sure, you do you or whatever. But I do have to make a game that for an audience that's paying me to make the games.
Yes.
So I will make what they want is what I will make. And if they want something different, then I'll make something different. I'm funded through Patreon, and so I am making, if you support on Patreon, I'm making it for you.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed that. Stick around as I have much more to share in the future. And as always, hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.